Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore the strategies that drive successful decision making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Tisha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today we have a trailblazer in digital retail innovation. His name is Adam. He's the co-founder of Ideal by Design House, which is based in Ohio. Adam is leading the charge in transforming the digital circular industry by enhancing customer experiences for grocers and retailers. His work integrates dynamic digital circulars with intelligent omni-channel distribution. He'll have to tell you all about what that means, backed by advanced analytics, which measures store traffic and marketing ROI. Adam's deep expertise in marketing, visual communications, and consumer packaged good investments makes him a visionary and driving customer engagement. So Adam, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you here today. Could you share with us more about your role at Ideal Design House and how you're revolutionizing customer engagement in the retail space?
That was an exciting intro. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to try to match your energy. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to try really hard to match that energy. So I'm the co-founder here. I have a business partner. He and I started this years ago. We used to be a full service ad agency and we did a lot of digital content creation for folks and a lot of media buying. And we were all small agency. We grew to about maybe 10 people back in the day. And then we had an idea one day, and this is back at the end of 2018. And really we were working with a lot of Ace Hardware store owners. Ace Hardware is a cooperative where the owners actually own the cooperative, the mothership that is. And they would complain all the time about their print circular. Really, it's their print monthly ad is the way you would see it. This piece that comes out on a regular basis and talks about what's on sale. It's a newspaper type of a piece. You would get them a lot from your grocery store and from a pharmacy and things like that. Anyway, they were complaining about these things. And we always thought, man, there's got to be a digital solution for this, to serve it and to distribute it. But we couldn't kind of figure out how it would work. And then one day we had this aha moment. And we kind of realized how it would work. We had 2 months until our next convention that we were going to for Ace Hardware. We said, we're going to build this thing. So we built it. We launched it at the Ace Hardware convention, and it started growing really quickly. A year later, we launched it at a grocery convention. And in most of the money in this world of what we call the circular or the weekly or monthly ad is in the grocery space. It started growing really quickly then. That was actually launched right before COVID hit. And at the time, we were about 10 employees. And now we have about 150 employees. We've grown a lot over these last 5 or so years, just because there's this big movement in the retail world away from traditional print. People don't interact with their mailbox like they used to, their physical mailbox, right? We used to get stuff from the mailbox all the time. It was rather important. And now it's almost never that you get anything important from the mailbox. And really, it's because mostly everything has changed over to these things. These our lives, these phones that I'm holding here in my hand, and they change the way we want to absorb information. And so we built a system that helps retailers migrate from this print world into a digital world. And if you can think about kind of the two problems that we had to overcome to do that, the first is that these digital circulars, these digital weekly ads or monthly ads, like we talk about, historically, they've always been PDF files, right? So it's basically retailer creates something for the purpose of print. They stick it on their website as a PDF file. Customers can see it. And that works fine on a desktop. It works okay on a tablet. It works really poorly on a mobile device because it's a format meant to be read like a newspaper. It's supposed to be big and held in your hand. So we changed that completely. We built a dynamic system that's driven from a database, and it really changed the way that user experience is. We actually patented most of that stuff along the way so that not only is it dynamic, it fits better on a mobile device. It has animation and video and recipe. It's a very engaging format. Think about it as like almost a mixture between item and price and like Facebook on the other side. The other problem that we solved is distribution, because if you think about, for decades, retailers, most of the money in the system was paying to distribute that piece, printing it over and over again to thousands and thousands of copies, and then paying to get it into all these mailboxes in the neighborhood. That's not a cheap thing, and those costs have gone up. So without distribution, a digital weekly ad or monthly ad doesn't really do much, right? Only your loyal customers will come and find it on their own. So we built a distribution system that is based in the media world. So ads that we're buying in apps and websites that are targeting specific individuals, something called programmatic media. So it targets customers that shop that store already. It targets customers that shop competitor stores in the area. It drives them to that weekly ad, and then it follows them all the way back to that store, and it reports how many customers did we drive, and how many new customers, and how many regular customers, how many came from competitor A versus competitor. We built a whole ecosystem to help a retailer migrate from this print world into the digital world. And that's kind of, I know it was a long answer to a short question.
No, it's perfect. I'm actually going to ask you to stay here a little bit. I just want to dig into, I want you to think about the decisions that your customers are making. And what I'm really wondering is, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for grocers and retailers to leverage this technology to specifically deepen customer engagement and drive sales? So what might they be deciding in order to do that?
It's a great question. Obviously, print has a lot of limitations. Not only is there no real data that we can gather from it to understand whether or not it works, there's nothing that you can do at all to customize it to an individual customer or to run campaigns to certain market segments. So in our world, we can do all of that. So for example, the ad can be personalized based on purchase history. Right? So if the retailer has a loyalty program, of course, they have a database with all the purchase history of all their customers. We can look into that purchase history and rearrange that ad based on what's most relevant to you, the customer. Right? So imagine the featured section at the top of the ad more relevant to you. A good example of that is, if I know that you have a little baby at home and Huggies diapers are on sale, I'm going to put it at the top. A retailer would never put Huggies diaper on the front page of their ad because a small percentage of the population has babies, and so it just doesn't make logical sense. But if I know you have a baby, well, I'm going to put it right at the top. It's that kind of change that, number one, it makes it more relevant to the customer, so they're more engaged and it's more valuable to them. But number two, they're more likely to react. It's more likely to impact their frequency back to the store and their basket size. That's one good example.
That's a great example. So if I'm thinking about how to increase my basket size, how to increase engagement in particular issues in a particular group of people, these are ways that we can do that. That is great. So your platform uses advanced analytics to measure store traffic and calculate cost per visit. As an example, you talked about that, which demonstrates marketing ROI. How important is data-driven or data-informed, as I like to say, insight in shaping the actual marketing strategies in the retail environment, especially today?
Incredibly important. It's actually, many different industries are at their own place from a technology standpoint. We work so much in the grocery industry, and grocery is one of the industries that's just a little behind the times following other industries like fashion and sportswear and other things. And, one of the things that we've found is that there's so much room for growth in that space. The data, to answer your question, is the most valuable thing. It's amazing how for many decades, many decisions were made based on gut instinct, right? This is what my customers want, or I think this is how they'll react. But having real data allows us to make much better decisions. A good example of that is we can tell exactly what happens inside of that ad experience from a customer's perspective. We can watch them come in. We can see what they view, what they click on, what they add to their list, what they share. All that data is collected and shared back with the retailer. So now the retailer has a feedback loop to help them understand what are the most engaged items in the meat category or produce or whatever categories they're interested in. And the people who are actually buying those products to fill a store out and to choose which items should be on sale, those people are getting this constant feedback on how customers are interacting with it. So for many decades, these retailers have only had the data on what sells, right, which is important, vitally important. But they had data based on how people are interacting with that piece of ad material in their home. And that feedback loop that we provide really helps them make better decisions and build better ads.
I really like that. I think it's bringing the in the home, like, let me capture you before you get to the store. Like, I notice now when you go into retail environments, they've gotten wind of some way of measuring where people pick up things from. And so they organize how the store. So you're saying before you even get there.
Yeah, because our product is really used in people's homes as they're preparing for their trip. Some people will use it shopping up and down the aisle, but most people are kind of thinking about their trip to the store and putting a list together, and we're part of that experience for them.
Yeah, and I love that it represents a different version of the omni-channel version. It's not like, oh, you just showed to come pick up your stuff, but I'm even going to ensure that you have, even before you leave, you're going to have, I love it. I think that this is a great way for us to think about really being able to create a journey for the consumer through things. And we know that journeys enable us to really learn. about how people are operating and how to improve their experiences. So here you've got this background in marketing and visual communications, right? You had a amount of time at Emmett Design as well, so this is not your first rodeo. How do you balance creativity with analytics to create campaigns that really resonate with consumers and influence their behavior?
It's really easy for me because I'm an art student. So I actually went to, it sounds crazy because what I'm doing right now is running an ad tech company. But my education was art school. Out of high school, I went to art school. I came to the Cleveland Institute of Art. That's what brought me over here to Ohio. I loved it. In fact, I was a painting major for a semester until they told me I wasn't allowed to use the computer before allowed to be used in the painting major.
Wow.
But I fell from there into two-dimensional graphic design. So that then I could use the computer and my art skills. And I love to create. I am a very creative individual. I love art of all kinds. And so the creative side of what we do is my favorite piece of that puzzle. Marrying that with the data and the analytics and the strategy is a lot of fun for me. I have a lot of mathematical focused mind in the way that I think. It's just something that works really well for me. But it really creates a lot of value from the retailer perspective too.
So the marketplace tool that you've developed facilitates the sophisticated CPG investments in the digital circular platform. Can you share how this tool is changing the way consumer packaged goods companies approach digital markets? So we kind of talked about what it does, but how does this actually change how they approach marketing and their retail partnerships?
So what I've explained thus far is how retailers use our system to migrate from a print world into a digital world.
Yeah.
But that same ecosystem can be used, to your point, from the manufacturer's perspective. So a good example is, let's say, Coca-Cola, right? They want to target all of the people who shop all the stores that our circulars run in, but maybe specifically they want to target just millennials, which we could easily do. We could target any subset of the customer base. Then Coca-Cola can serve ads that are co-branded with the local retailer, whatever that local banner is that customer shops most often, drive traffic to that circular for that banner where the customer shops most often, and drive traffic specifically directly to the Coca-Cola content. We have this patented system that rearranges the order of the items in the ad based on the media that was driven. And this allows basically top place position for all traffic driven from any given campaigns and to do it for many different campaigns at the same time. So it allows the manufacturers, the Coca-Colas and the Procter Gambles and the Hershey's of the world, to basically invest in our system and utilize it to reach an audience that they otherwise wouldn't have be able to reach. And, one of the pieces of the puzzle that's real exciting is the weekly ad has always been an area that manufacturers have invested in, but only with individual retailers, right? I go to this retailer, I pay to get on the front or to be in the ad, and so on and so forth, retailer after retailer. In our system, they can do that, but aggregated across thousands and thousands of retailers all at the same time and reaching tens of millions of customers all at once inside of this weekly ad system where there's this potential for engaging rich content to marry along with items. So, a good example is Hershey comes out with some new Hershey bar. Well, just sticking it in an ad isn't necessarily enough, right? A video or an animation or a recipe, something that helps me understand why that is. Is it healthier for my kids? Is it
Right.
is it more fun? Like, why do I want to buy it? That rich content helps in that experience for the customer.
I really like where this conversation is going for the reason of when people are making decisions to grow, there's so many nuances in those decisions. And so what you're doing is, if there's a listener that we have in our audience that's in this specific space, right? You're a retailer or a consumer packaged goods company. This information is going to be very useful in how you're thinking about a growth step. How do I actually grow in a very specific way? So thank you for sharing that. So this message right now here is for the audience. I want you to think about your own customer engagement strategies. How are your tools that you're using connected to both your current and potential customers? Share your experience with us on LinkedIn and other social media using the Dynamic Decisions podcast. Okay, I want to move into thinking a little bit about your leadership. So you've led teams, you've led multiple efforts for many, many years, including as president, right, which we know is the highest level. How has your leadership style evolved as you've transitioned into more of a tech-driven space with Ideal?
That's a great question. The thing that I've learned the most over the last couple of years as we've been building this company is the importance of a vision and communicating it to everyone in the company. Because the thing that separates this thing that separates successful companies from unsuccessful companies, I feel, especially new companies that are doing things that are novel, that have not been done before, is really clear vision, right? So having an eye on the future and keeping connected to that. You can think about all we're doing all day long is making a series of decisions in life and in work and, in parenting. It's just a series of decisions, one after another after another. It's hard to constantly make decisions that are for the common good unless you're focused on one specific goal at the end. Is this decision going to help me get to that place? So having that vision be clear and concise and allowing everyone to understand it means that not only am I going to make all the decisions that I need to make and to accomplish that goal that we have out there, but everyone else in the organization they're making decisions all day long too. They need to see that same light at the end of the tunnel, because if they don't see it, they could be driving us down a slightly different path. And that's not easy. That's a really hard thing to do. And sometimes you have to move through uncomfortable places to get to where you want to get to because of the fact that you have this vision. It's always not always the best or easiest or most profitable thing in the short term. This long-term vision is really the goal for success. At least that's what we have found over the last 5 or 6 years.
Just you speaking facts upon facts upon facts right now. So I think we preach it. So you're preaching to the choir because we talk a lot about vision. It's the primary thing. It's the way you get to say yes or no to something. All right, we're going to move into my favorite segment, and we're going to take some time with this one because you're going to explain why as we go through this segment. It is called Find the Decision-Making Persona. I just made that up, but it's about finding out your decision-making style through a persona assessment. So I'm going to ask you 4 different questions that represent different decision-making approaches. And after each one, you're going to tell me how much the way that I'm asking the question resonates with how you really approach decisions. You're going to have a scale of 0 to 100% for each question, but you only get 100% across all 4. Does that make sense?
So I'm going to ask 4 questions. Those 4 answers, they're going to add up to 100. Right?
Yes. I'm going to ask the questions, and then you're going to say, I resonate with that. 50%. But you only get 100% across all 4. And you don't get to see all the other ones first, just FYI, because people always ask. And then you'll tell me kind of why you're answering the question that way. All right, here's the first one. The first one is called a feeler. It's a values-driven leader. So this persona prioritizes alignment with core values and mission, often weighing the human impact and cultural fit of decisions alongside business metrics. So when considering a new marketing technology or platform feature, I ask myself, does this align with our mission to enhance customer experiences and create lasting value for retailers and consumers? Even if a more technically advanced solution might generate short-term results, I need to feel confident that we're building meaningful engagement and positive impact that extends beyond just business metrics. So Adam, how much does approaching decisions like this resonate with you, and why?
My gut wants to give it a 25 because I got 4 questions and it feels important, but I don't know if it's going to be more or less important than the other ones. But it's incredibly important. If the decisions that we're making do not resonate with customers, we're not going to be in business very long. And if they don't meet that common vision that we have for the future, again, it's not going to work very well. So it's incredibly important. I'm giving it a 25 because I don't know the other 3.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a safe way to do it. Okay.
I'm playing it safe.
All right. That's cool. So right now you're 25% feeler. That's that persona. Here's the next one. The next one is called the planner. It's a strategic visionary. This persona focuses on long-term implications and future-proofing decisions, always thinking several moves ahead and considering multiple scenarios. When making strategic decisions about platform development or partnerships, I ask myself, what are the long-term implications of this choice for how retailers and CPG companies will engage customers over the next 5 to 10 years? I need to map out how evolving consumer behaviors, technology advancements, and market dynamics will shape our solutions to ensure scalability and adaptability.
I'm giving this a 40.
Okay.
Because it's more important than the first one we talked about. Short-term success is just that. It's short-term. And it's that long-term vision we were just talking about a minute ago. And honestly, the other thing that I've found is very rare is there aren't that many people that look that far in the future. And so if you have really good, long-sighted vision, it just makes it much easier to be successful. I know we're up to 65% here. We don't have a whole lot left, but hopefully, I don't know what the other two are going to be. I'm
Whoa. Well, let's keep it moving then so you'll know. All right, here's the next one. It's called the counter. It's a challenger of assumptions. So this persona naturally questions conventional wisdom and looks for contrarian opportunities, often finding success by zigging when others zag. When evaluating marketing strategies or technology investments, I ask myself, what assumptions are we making about consumer behavior or retail trends that might be fundamentally wrong? What is everyone else in the digital, circular, and retail marketing space doing that we should question? I tend to dig into why certain approaches work and whether there's a more innovative method that leverages our unique position to solve problems differently.
It is tough because I did not know these questions ahead. That's really important. I would
Okay.
say it's second place to my three that I've gotten so far. So just mathematically, I'm giving it a 30%. But that takes me up to 95 now, so that's not good.
You
But
might want to come back and refactor
I will
after.
tell you, this is something also that I find very rare. And the reason is what you're talking about is thinking outside the box, right? Most everyone does what they know, right? Their reaction to a situation is based on previous situations that are like that. You know, we're pattern recognition animals. And so it's very normal for us to do what we know. And you never will find advancement in technology if you just do what you know, because that type of evolution, that type of revolution does not happen unless you come up with something that's completely new. And you have to really break it down to first principles. Why are we doing this? What is the best way to do this? It's not the way that it's been done. A good example of that is we work with a lot of wholesale ecosystems. In the grocery space, there are these large retailers that have their own distribution, and then there are smaller retailers that rely on distribution partners, these big warehouses that sell them all their food. And these ecosystems, for many years, have built an infrastructure around print. And so, if you think about when we started working with them, all we did was we tapped into the tail end of that system, a whole ecosystem, create print. Okay, everything's done, and now boom, here's a digital piece. Well, that's not really the best way to do it. The best way to do it is to start with this digital first approach and create a piece for the purpose of digital. If you want to print it at the end, print it. But in a few years from now, there won't be any print at all. So it's silly to think about that. And so it's hard to do that, especially for a large organization. It's hard to rip apart something that you've spent decades building, knowing that it's just not the best way for the future. But that is the only way to think. So I'm giving it there. I only have 5 left. So hopefully the last one's not that important.
Well, we're going to see. And then, of course, like I said, if you just have to make an adjustment, you can before we get to the final number.
Deal.
All right, here we go. So this last one is called the data driver. It's an evidence-based decision maker. So this persona relies heavily on metrics, analytics, and concrete evidence to validate decisions, preferring proof over intuition. So before making important decisions about platform features, marketing campaigns, or CPG partnerships, I ask myself, what does our performance data actually tell us about customer engagement, store traffic, and ROI? I want to see concrete analytics on everything from user adoption rates to business outcome improvements that validate our strategic instincts and guide where to focus our efforts for maximum client value.
Yeah. I mean, I only have 5 left. I agree. I could move things around. To me, this is one of the less important items. And the reason is you don't want to undervalue the purpose of data. What the work we do, data is incredibly important. But as far as decisions in building a company, lots of times there just isn't data to support those decisions because especially if you're doing something novel. We're doing something brand new that's never been done before. There's no data to support whether or not it will work. There's no data to support, if your guess for the future is correct. And it's probably not. You hope to be more correct than others, but you're never going to be all the way correct. And so data is incredibly important in analyzing things that you have done to understand the value of them. And we do that a lot with our clients because we're running campaigns and we're showing them whether or not those campaigns are working. But data, as far as building a company for the future, it's hard to get because, again, a lot of the time it doesn't exist. So I'm putting it as one of the lower items on that list, at least for me.
Okay, so we've got you at 25% feeler, 40% planner, 30% counter, and 5% data driver.
Yeah, and I'd move around a little bit and give data a little more credit than that. But
tell me, how do you want to move it around?
Maybe we take a little from each of them. Take 5% from those other 3, and end up with,
Okay.
with more like 20% for data. Exactly.
Boom. There you go. All right. 20% feeler, 35% planner, 25% counter, and 20% data driver.
That's me.
That's you. Boom. It's very balanced. That's good stuff. So the idea there is like there's no right or wrong answer. So in the same way that you talk about the invisible data, like when you haven't done something, like how good are people at managing their assumptions, and how does that assumptions become the data that I then take into the next level and measure against to see if what I'm thinking is actually right. So like there's no right or wrong how to do this. It's sort of what I think entrepreneurship sometimes is all about, is how do you get from point A to point B, and everything just crystallizes and becomes more beautiful as you
Sure.
go. Well,
I love
thank you so much for doing that exercise. As we kind of wrap up this conversation, I've got one final question for you. You've been at the forefront here now of transforming retail marketing through technology and analytics. If you could give one piece of advice to leaders who are looking to innovate customer engagement in their own industries, what would it be?
I think it's super cliche, but it's about thinking outside the box. It's about having a line of thought that is not normal, that is different. It's very easy to say, think outside the box. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to do because it's not the way that we're typically trained to act or to react. So as cliche as it sounds, think outside the box is my note.
Well, you guys heard it here. Think outside the box. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your expertise, Adam. It has been a pleasure having you on the show. Your approach to combining creativity, data, and technology to really revolutionize the space that you're in is actually inspirational. If you could share with our listeners where they can learn more about you and more about Ideal, the design house.
Ideal.sale is our website. It's a good place to learn about us. Certainly find me on LinkedIn and then hit me up there anytime. I'm happy to talk to anyone. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And for our listeners, if you want to learn more, go check it out, as you just said. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and share it with your network. And let's keep the conversation going on social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep innovating, keep engaging, and keep leading with purpose.